guys appear like you won't be boring, which is a good start. I said you guys appear like you would not be boring people.
We're not.
So I guess you're the sweet, nice one. I feel like you're the troublemaker then, in that case. Yes? Alright. So we'll be friends. You and I will see. Hey, what's up? It's Todd, and I'm here today in Austin, Texas to talk to you about low energy game. See, a lot of you may have heard that I'm a low energy guy, in set. I talk to girls and I'm not super like dancing monkey. I'm not very hyper. I'm a bit of an introvert, and yet I make it work. So I want to talk to you guys about exactly how it is that I make low energy game work and exactly why it is that low energy game is actually more effective and more powerful than high energy game is. So without too much further ado, let's crack into it. Let's talk about how you can get a lot more by doing a lot less. In order to understand low energy game and why it's effective, I want to make a point to you. Most anything you do in game, most any gaming move, essentially is pushing a button. But you don't want to come across like you're pushing a button. If someone knows you're trying to push their buttons, all they're going to do is try and resist having their buttons pushed, right? So say you do a line that's a bit of a tease. If you tease and it comes off as like, there's my tease, did it work? It's not going to work. Whereas if it comes off as though like you just said this tease by accident, without a lot of energy behind it, a lot of like intention behind it, well, that's when it's actually going to be the most received and most powerful. So ironically, being low energy in game, ironically being less tryhard, and ironically having in some ways less sort of like energy impactfulness to your lines actually will make them more impactful in terms of emotional reaction. Okay, so one of the major reasons why low energy game is important and is effective is that a lot of what you're conveying in game is that you don't care about the result, that you can take it or leave it, that you don't need the girl. Right? Clearly, if you say the line and need a reaction, well then to some level you need the girl. Whereas if the line just comes across as almost an accidental, blasé, sort of like a side tangent of what's going on, it's a lot more effective. So consider this. If you're like, hey, you and I are not gonna get along. Did it work? Maybe. It's not gonna work. Where it's like, the funny thing, I don't know if you and I are gonna get along. But anyway, as I was saying, that's actually much more effective, the second one, because it seems accidental, it seems like you're not trying to push a button. Also, if they notice it and try and like bring it up or try and react to it, you're already off on another sentence and they have to actually do effort and they have to actually invest in the conversation in order to deal with the sort of shit test you just gave them, all right? So anyway, the global point is this. Whenever you can do something in a more subtle way in game, it's usually more effective, right? There's this law in game, they say don't say what you can nod, don't nod what you can wink, don't wink what you can smile. That applies in spades to low energy game. The next point I want to make about low energy game is that low energy does not mean low intensity. Just the fact that you're not burning a lot of calories and not dancing around like a crazy like clown doesn't mean that there's not intensity. It doesn't mean you can't have a nice assertive tone of voice. It doesn't mean you can't have strong eye contact. It doesn't mean that you can't say things that are polarizing, that you can't stand up for yourself and do all those kind of things. The key is actually to be high intensity while being low energy. Right? Like we said before, when it's less try-hard, it's more impactful, but you still have to do the types of things that are impactful. So you still have to stand up for yourself. You still need to tease the girl and give her a hard time. You still need to be willing to bring up sexual topics, and it's very helpful if you have that strong eye contact, strong tone of voice. Think to yourself a little bit of like a police officer, right? When a police officer is giving someone a command, he expects to be obeyed. He knows he's the authority in that situation. You want to be that same level of authority as the police officer, but at the same time with like a smile on your face. So it's like, hey, excuse me, sir. It's like, hey, excuse me, ma'am, right? It's sort of that little bit of cockiness, that little bit of flirtatiousness, but you do have that biting tone of voice and you do have that strong eye contact. Or say, for example, a lot of people ask, how do you open girls on the dance floor without being high energy? Well, instead of being blah, 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 dance all over the place, instead it's like, hey, excuse me, you guys look fucking amazing, right? That sort of a thing where eye contact's strong, voice is strong, you're certain in what you're saying, that's enough. Okay, so again, low energy does not mean low intensity. In fact, low energy, low intensity flat out won't work. In fact, high energy, low intensity won't work. So regardless of your energy level, you still have to be intense, you still have to focus on the girl, and you still have to do the right elements in game itself. The next fact and benefit of low energy game is that it's flexible and sustainable. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say you go into an interaction very, very high energy. Well, now you have to maintain that level of energy throughout the interaction, and that's difficult. You don't just have to burn those calories that first 30 seconds, you have to continue burning calories, continue putting that energy in throughout the entire interaction. Because a funny thing about game is this: girls don't tend to notice the actual energy level of the set or how the set's actually going in that moment. What they tend to notice is the change in the energy level or the change in how things are going. So if you're bringing a lot of energy and then you lessen that energy, the girl feels a drop in energy and she feels it as a come down. Whereas if you had started lower energy and just kept it at that energy level or slightly increased it, she'd actually feel it as though the interaction is getting better and better and better. So it's very sustainable and very easy to have a low energy interaction where you can gradually increase the energy and it feels again like things are growing, things are increasing, things are improving. Finally, let's say that you're in an interaction and then maybe you lose her attention, or maybe she turns away, gets distracted, something like that. If you're already high energy, it's hard to go to a higher energy level to get her attention back. However, if you're a low energy level, it's very easy to have an emotional spike, positive spike, negative spike, some sort of like impactful thing that will be very noticed to get her attention back, and then you can drop it down again to that lower energy level. So it's a lot. Also, say for example, if you need to change the subject, right? You're high energy, high energy, high energy. You need to change the subject. Well, how are you going to do something more impactful than what you're doing that's high energy to change the subject? But if you're low energy, now you can emotional spike, add some energy, do something that's a change in order to move the interaction forward, and then drop it again down to that lower energy level. So it gives you a lot more maneuverability if you're not running at high end. It's kind of like, actually, let's say like with a car, right? If you're at a car that's kind of at a mid-range speed, you can like hit the brakes and slow down. You can also hit the gas and speed up, so you have a lot of range. Whereas if you're running at the absolute fastest you can, it's very hard to accelerate except in a negative direction. Same kind of thing with interaction. So again, it's more sustainable to game low energy, it's more flexible, and therefore again, it's more effective. Another reason why low energy game tends to be more effective is that it's better for the girl's reputation. Here's what I mean by that. As you get to an advanced level in game, most of the time, the thing that's gonna get in the way of things going well is not whether or not the girl likes you. Most of the time, she's gonna like you because you're a high value guy. You're conveying good things about yourself. However, girls have friends. Girls are in social environments, those kind of things. When her friends look at you and her meeting and they see that it looks like something crazy is happening, something over the top's happening, it draws a lot of attention to the fact that you're doing something, that pickup is in progress. It also draws a lot of attention to the fact that something weird is going on. And so you're liable to get a lot of resistance from the friends. You're liable to get a lot of like them jumping in, them pulling her away, them saying, oh, this was fun, but we gotta go, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas when you're low energy, low key, then it's kind of under the radar. It doesn't seem like that much is happening, and it's very plausible that she's just talking or you're just friends or not so much is gonna happen, and she can do things like go home with you without it ruining her reputation. She can do things like give you a phone number without having to take a million questions, or without attention even being drawn to the fact that the phone number was given, because everybody's not staring at you and watching the interaction in progress, okay? Good pickup should not look like pickup, should not feel like pickup. The general idea, you should not be drawing attention to the fact that you are doing pickup. So low energy, low key game, under the radar game is much better in that regard, and it is going to be maybe not as many indicators of interest being shown, maybe not as flashy, but in terms of getting actual results and getting follow through in the real world, dealing with her reputation in a positive way and not making a scene for her friends is incredibly, incredibly useful. Also, if you want to talk about doing game in quieter environments or social circles, it becomes even more important to be low-key, low energy, not draw attention to it, not get her in trouble. Finally, another even more extreme example is maybe hired guns, girls that are paid to be attractive. If it looks like you're gaming them, their boss will not stand for it. They will come and interfere. But again, if it's low key, you may just be able to close right under the boss's nose and actually get a result. So again, being better for the girl's reputation, not drawing attention to the fact she's being picked up, not drawing attention to the fact that she's doing something potentially slutty is going to help you massively in making your game effective. The fifth and final reason why I prefer low energy game goes to one of the most common questions I get asked, which is guys come to me and they say, well, when I'm in state or feeling excellent, I can game really, really well, but when I'm out of state, I'm lost, confused, I get blown out, etc. Well, the problem is if you're doing a high energy type of game, you're reliant on being in a high energy state. You're reliant on being congruent and being up and being in a positive mood in order to execute. Whereas if you learn to execute low energy based on skill, based on the right techniques, well, now even on your most off day, you can still bring that game. And that doesn't preclude getting into state. It doesn't preclude having a great day and having your game get even better. That does happen, but when you bring your baseline up, you're able to get great results regardless, all right? And so this more consistent, more low energy game that doesn't require you to be congruent with something you may not be congruent with in a bad mood, or if you're just like feeling low energy or tired or whatever, it allows you to be much more consistent in your game. And most guys' problems in game is lack of consistency. Most guys can get a random result once in a blue moon, but to be able to go out day after day, night after night, and get results repeatedly is very, very helpful. It's also very helpful for your learning curve. If your game fluctuates wildly, you're amazing one day and terrible the next day based on your mood, how do you even learn technique? Because you're not getting feedback for doing good techniques. It's just very haphazard and random. And this is actually a big reason why a lot of naturals, a lot of guys who go drink and party as their way of learning game, they never really improve. They get to a certain level and they plateau. So the low energy game, more consistent, more repeatable, better for learning. If you ever want to get to a really high level in game, you need to be able to game low energy. Now, if you happen to feel amazing and you happen to feel like being high energy every now and again, that's fine, but your baseline game of being low energy, being consistent, being technical is where you're gonna be most effective and get the most results. So there you have several reasons why low energy game is actually more effective, and when you get good at it, will actually be more natural, more congruent, smoother, and get you better overall results. There are also some added benefits, like getting her to chase you. A lot of guys have learned to get the girl to stay simply based on being high energy. The problem is you're constantly putting in the energy. There's no time for her to actually put in the energy and chase. When you learn to lower that energy down, you're gonna actually give her space to start pursuing you, and a lot of things are gonna get a lot better. Now, one warning, when you at first bring your energy down, if you've learned to game high energy, you may lose the occasional set. That's normal, don't worry about it, okay? You will find though that the sets you'll keep in a much better way, again, with a better vibe, better dynamic, with the girl putting in more effort, chasing you, and they're likely to lead to much better and much more efficient results. So try it, I think you're going to really like the results that you get with it.